I will, I know it's still early, we'll be partying this evening and so on. And I also know you're waiting for the President Laureate Award, actually, which is why a number of you are also here. And to introduce our honorary Dr. Judith Rodin. I apologize if I don't get the accent right. I love the French bit, Rodin. To introduce my good friend Judith, we have another good friend, Josette Chiran. Josette was Executive Director of the World Food Program, and then we seconded her to become Vice Chairman at World Economic Forum, and currently we've seconded her to be the President and CEO of Asian Society. Mark the words, seconded. You can never leave, madam. And we are so thrilled to have you here to introduce Dr. Judith Rodin, President of Rockefeller. Welcome, Josette.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's wonderful to have Auburn here at the United Nations. There is a word that comes to my mind when I think of Judith Rodin: transformational. But while there are many amazing people who are transformational, there's the rare one that's always transformational for the benefit of humanity. And Judith, you are one of the rare ones. I'm getting emotional. How proud your family must be, Judith. You're here tonight with your husband, Paul, who has just completed his 5-year term as chairman of the Administrative Conference, a great power that many don't know about in Washington. And also with your son, Alex, who's been working at the National Security Council for President Obama, is now with MasterCard. And also Jonna, who's also here and working at the Executive Office of the President with Alex. How wonderful they could be here with you and with us tonight. Clearly an overachieving family. But Judith, you two come from humble beginnings, as Beth has talked about. And how proud Morris and Sally would be, your parents. Judith is known to tell a story about her upbringing. And her father, who was an insurance salesman, and her mother, as a housewife, had very high ambitions for their 2 daughters. And every time she would bring home a report card, if it was 94 or 97, he'd say, "What happened to the other 6%?" And I guess you'd have to explain this. And that drilling kind of took hold in you, because I think you have spent the rest of your life filling the 6% gap. Obliterating it, I would say, as you will soon hear. And also how perfect tonight that you're receiving this from Auburn University. You are placed among this rare percent of people who have also received this award, who are the game changers of your kind. And as Dean Henton talked about, people who are making the world better for the young people who will follow us. And so you join Desmond Tutu, Norman Borlaug, Howard Buffett, Madeleine Albright, and many others, Tim Cook of Apple, and others during the 23 years of this award. Judith, in fact, has done many wonderful things for young people, and I hope she talks about getting tickets to Hamilton for, I don't know, hundreds of young people who would not have been able to afford it. 100,000. So the students in the room, that's really a wonderful thing, but that's the way she thinks. And how appropriate that it's also from Auburn, an esteemed public research university located in beautiful Auburn. I've been there. Auburn's among the few American universities that's designated both triple, a land grant, sea grant, and space grant research institution. And I got to know the power of Auburn in my first week on the job as head of the United Nations World Food Program. First, I will tell you the World Food Program was started by Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy in the wake of the Great World Wars, really on the idea that you can't build peace on an empty stomach. And this is the UN's anti-famine mechanism. It gives over 30 billion meals a year into war zones all over the world, and disaster zones and places where people would starve from hunger. It's considered really a gem of the global system. And on my first week, Dean Henton walks in my office and she says, "Hello, I'm from Auburn and we're going to end world hunger." And I said, "Really?" And I realized never to say that because she was dead serious. And then I met the band of women who work with Jim and Harriet and all of you, incredible team supported by everyone at the university in really taking a leadership role and enacting a vision to activate students and universities throughout the world in this most noble of fights, to end something that has touched every human being and every soul in the world. All of our families have experienced hunger. And I'm just so proud that today the university is the leader of Push Presidents United to Stop World Hunger, with over 90 universities involved with that, only 2 years old, top universities throughout the world. So proud of my former chief of staff at the UN, Paula Hunker, who's been part of that and now is living in Auburn with you. So it's perfect because Judith's leadership on hunger issues is profound. We were just in Kenya together, and she was surrounded by the Rocky Docs, the PhD students and leaders who were all funded by the Rockefeller Institution over many decades to really become the backbone of agricultural scientists and leaders who would help change the world. I also got to know Judith during this period, and I was on the front lines of hunger, and I was a bit of a stressed person as head of the World Food Program. And when the World Food Crisis hit in 2008, 140 million people were thrown into hunger virtually overnight. And a couple of the champions of that fight, David Navarro and the World Food Program leader here, Erica, were part of that team. And literally we were triaging, out of 10 people, 9 would have to go hungry, picking the one who could get the help. And I thought at that time, the global system is crazy. There's too much load on the emergency systems. I have to find people who agree with this, and we have to find a resiliency system for Africa. And I was here in New York at a big conference, and I had coffee with Judith and poured my heart out and said, there's no resiliency system, and the World Food Program's got 60 years of data, and maybe we could turn this into an insurance system. And I looked up, and she had her coffee, and she said, "Done." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Done. We're going to do this." And I said, "What? Where's the bureaucracy? Where's the lost years and people dying? This isn't how it works. Leaders don't say, 'Done.' What does that mean?" And she said, "Send your team over. We'll work this out. We'll get it done. Let's aim for 3 years." Today, the African Risk Capacity, the ARC, stands with the African Union as the insurance facility of Africa that we built together. And I saw what she was made of. And I will tell you, when you work on global challenges, you can meet 100 people that can tell you what the problems are in the world. And you can meet very eloquent people that can speak about the problems in the world. And you can meet many people who tweet about the problems in the world. And you can even meet brilliant young people like the one I met who said, "I'm going to create an app to end poverty." You can meet that too. But what is rare is to meet the person who's going to do the work to solve the problem, to unknot it at its root. And that's what Judith Rodin is made of. The thing is, this is just one story. And I spent a lot of time today thinking of all the places you have made that difference, that transformational difference. And I wanted to know what makes Judith Rodin tick, because she has so many of these stories. I will tell you a few. And the one thing that came out of everything I've read about you is this belief that hard work is the key ingredient of being successful at anything. And I've seen that happen. You do your homework, you knuckle down, you get to know the problem, and in fact, you knew my problem better than I did by the time you were done. So she's a product of the Pennsylvania Public Schools, but she stood out from the beginning, and in second grade, I just want you all to know, was judged to have the best smile in all of Pennsylvania. You obviously missed your calling as a beauty queen. But after graduating with honors, she attended the University of Pennsylvania on a scholarship, and during her time at UPenn, as an undergrad, she was head of the University Women's Student Government Association. Now, usually this isn't something that stands out as part of a story like this, but I love the editorial written about you at that time. And I thought she obviously had great political judgment, because she used her position to end curfews for the oldest women students, and also to be sure that they could visit the men's rooms. I see you used it, but then she did something else. She started raising money to transform Philadelphia. And she started thinking she could actually solve big problems and that students could get involved in that. And so there was an editorial in the Daily Pennsylvanian, the school newspaper, and it said, it talked about some of this, and it said the Women's Student Government Association was, quote, leaving its male counterpart behind in the dust, and, quote, there can be no doubting which student government has the guts around here and which is in tune with the times. And I think that was a bellwether for what was to come in your life. And yes, guts, I want to talk about that. But first, just a little bit more background. After earning her PhD in experimental psychology from Columbia, she began her 22-year career at Yale University, rising from assistant professor to provost. During her time at Yale, she was awarded 20 grants totaling nearly $30 million, wrote 203 academic articles, 64, I'm wondering, am I misreading my own notes, 64 book chapters, and co-authored 10 academic books. She gained tenure at the age of 33. I'm saying all this because we're in an academic environment here, so people that really can appreciate what all of this means, and went on to chair the psychology department, and then to become the first female dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Science, and then to provost. In all of that, she talks about something that was most important to her in her life, and that she wished she made a little more room for earlier in her life, which was giving birth to her son, Alex, who's here tonight. I think you should stand up and give an applause, because you have an amazing mother. I don't know if you know this, but your mother said in an interview that you softened her edges and made her less driven. And all I'll say is if this is the less driven version of your mother, we're not quite sure what it was like to meet you before. While at Yale, she pioneered research in women's health, including on obesity and eating disorders. You were so ahead of your time. And became the first to become a master in both biological and psychological factors affecting women and their body image. She wrote a book on this, and then took on the issue of aging and why those who age feel helpless, and really did pioneering work and guidance on how to overcome that. So remember how that school newspaper, when she was at the University of Pennsylvania, they used to call her president. That wasn't her title, but they just decided that. And it was very prescient, because she was then asked by the University of Pennsylvania to come back and serve as president in 1994. She was the first female president of an Ivy League school. She was the first UPenn alumni to serve as president of the university. And a New York Times interview notes that she was also the only woman to be on the short list for the presidencies both of Yale University and Penn, as well as for the top position at the National Institutes of Health, all at the same time. I think you've taken care of that 6% gap. She appeared on Oprah that year with her book called Body Traps, Breaking the Binds That Keep You from Feeling Good About Your Body. Something really important for women and young women and all of us. In her inaugural address at the University of Pennsylvania, she spoke of my favorite founding father, Benjamin Franklin, saying, quote, "The most central tradition that this university inherited from its founder is a certain disdain for that tradition, a willingness to challenge orthodoxy and think creatively and boldly." And so when Franklin founded the university, you kept true to that by really upending a lot of orthodoxies and changing the way the institution interacted not only with the world of scholarship, but with its own poor communities around the university. She doubled research funding to the university. She tripled its annual fundraising revenue. She tripled Penn's endowment. No, Auburn, you can't have her. The list here is phenomenal. She transformed undergraduate college programs. She launched new pilot curriculum. But perhaps I think the most exciting thing was the window onto her view of public-private partnerships and how they can really change the world. And so this groundbreaking partnership she put together to partner with the local community and to truly transform West Philadelphia across the areas of housing and schools and retail. This effort, she described at the time as moving down from the ivory tower of the Ivy League into the streets. You were ahead of your time. And maybe you can run for president someday, because this seems a very relevant message to really find solutions that work. She became the first person to receive all three of Pennsylvania's major honors, the Philadelphia Award, the William Penn Award, the Pennsylvania Society Gold Medal for Distinguished Achievement. So wouldn't you think this is time to rest? This is usually when her career picks up now and the world starts knowing Judith, when she was selected as president of the Rockefeller Foundation, the first woman in its 102-year history, first and only woman. In fact, her leadership of Pennsylvania, from transforming the university to a 21st century institution, really positioned her well for the Rockefeller Foundation. I head a Rockefeller institution right now, and we know they had bold and visionary ideas, including the original John D. Rockefeller, who grew up in real poverty. And really, when he earned his first dollars as a young man, he would begin tithing that money to help people. And one of the first gifts he gave was to a former slave, to help that former slave buy the freedom of his wife, who was still a slave. And so he documented all these gifts, and at some point he thought charity just isn't going to do it. We need something more powerful, we need something bigger, and he founded the Rockefeller Foundation to really transform the way giving would happen, to have a long-term impact, and a true pioneer. But over that century, those ideas needed to be refreshed, and Judith came in and really took that vision to a whole new level at the Rockefeller Foundation and asked questions like, how can we leverage our philanthropic capital to unlock more capital? How can we partner to make sure that we're solving big problems in the world? And under her leadership in the last decade, she has leveraged their investments by 10 and 20-fold to build resilient systems throughout the world, to pioneer issues such as innovative finance. And I would tell you everything, but then I'll end up giving her speech. But I've observed this firsthand. Judy unashamedly uses her power and her deep connections to leverage change where needed, and often for those with no voice in the world, and always for those who need the power of leverage and connection to get their dreams done. There is not a prime minister or a president in the planet who won't the value can be found. And as a great recipient of Rockefeller money, I just want to thank you for that, because it's true. how do we know what's going to work if we're not free to try things and sometimes not make it? So this disruptive innovation that she embodies and has brought to the world is really something, I think, that has changed the way all philanthropic institutions in the global space of bettering the world think. Judith is fond of quoting Einstein, who once said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I think he'd be proud of you too. I hope you're not going to talk about your rules of leadership, and I've picked them up in various places, so I don't know that you've put them together. But for the students here, could you raise your hands? This is really wise stuff right here, okay? And I picked up 3 rules of rodent leadership. First, a leader must always convey a compelling vision and clear rationale for change. That seems like a simple statement, but where are we going and why are we going there? Second, a leader must recognize that change is as much about influencing the culture as it is about influencing the domains of work, changing the way we think about things, changing what we believe can happen. You're of that. And so here we are at the UN. The UN was created in the ashes of World War II by those who saw what it's like when the world falls apart. It was built on a dream of a world that would work together, not at war, but to solve problems. Judith, I think you embody this. And I think even though you're stepping down from Rockefeller, I don't think we'll lose you, because transformation isn't what you do, it is what you are. So we want to thank you, and please join me in welcoming and Judith and Amir. Thank you for coming up and presenting. Yes.
Well, this is such an honor. Thank you so much.